This is Giving the Game Away, an attempt to shine light on areas of the modern sporting world that aren't talked about that much. We had the idea to do a podcast, and we originally just said to each other, right, let's interview some sports people about their mindset for approaching elite sport. But as that idea has grown and come on, we've realised that there is just so much to be encapsulated in the world of modern sport that we could talk about. And so each person we interview will try and reflect a different corner of that world.
We've interviewed a whole range of athletes from football, cricket, rugby, basketball and more, but we've also tried to speak to people from within sport in other areas such as broadcasters and agents and psychologists, and we hope that the interviews shine a light on areas of sport that you may not know that much about. Today we have on Kenji Gorré, who is a professional footballer for Nacional in Portugal, and he's also spent time at Manchester United, Manchester City and Swansea in the Premier League. But Kenji is definitely more than just a footballer. He's also a mindset coach, and he helps footballers in a number of ways, such as mentally preparing for matches, dealing with setbacks and reframing their attitude. He's also got a podcast himself, which is similar to ours, discussing the mental side of the game with elite footballers, and it's something we've taken a lot of inspiration from, so looking forward to speaking to him.
Although Kenji is only 26, he has been through so many of the ups and downs that a football career can inevitably throw at someone. And what's so good is he uses these experiences to now help young footballers all across the world. He talks to us about everything from the experience of working with the likes of Ferdinand and Sir Alex Ferguson to how he recently overcame a gambling addiction whilst playing for Swansea in the Premier League. He is such an engaging guy, and it is really clear how much he wants to help young footballers. And so the hour we had with him, to be honest, was just really inspiring. If you feel the same way and would want to find out more about Kenji and his work, it can be found at On The Ball Squad on Instagram, or his podcast, Conversations with Kenji, can be found on all the usual platforms.
Hi Kenji, thanks for coming on. We are a podcast that focuses on the mindset of elite athletes, and obviously that's a field that you're passionate about too. You're not only a professional footballer yourself, but you're a mindset coach and have your own podcast talking about the mental side of football. So it'll be great to hear your insight. But if we could start at the beginning of your career, because you moved to England at 4 years old when your dad, Dean Gore, a professional himself, signed for Huddersfield Town. So what was it actually like having a dad who was a professional footballer? Do you think it was a benefit or a hindrance?
So looking at my career and looking back at how it all started, when I moved to England, it was even looking back at that time, my mum tells me so many stories of even me not speaking a word of English, going into school and just being around the boys. I was a bit shy, obviously, but I was always an outgoing guy. I always get myself out there. I always wanted to learn. And I always passionate. I was a passionate kid, as my mum used to say. And I was always just so proud of my dad, going to the games and seeing people in the crowd. I've got such vivid memories of him, this fans singing his name and stuff, and I could just remember being in the box and sitting around and just feeling the atmosphere and even just seeing the fans and that cheering his name. That always used to make me so proud, and that's at 5-6 years old. And I always craved also that feeling. And I always saw myself being on that pitch as well. It was it's such a strange feeling, seeing my dad there being so proud, but also knowing deep down in my heart that that's what I desire, So from an early age, I just wanted to be a footballer, my mom and dad always used to tell me how a ball was everything that I wanted, even as Christmas present, birthday present, it would always just be a ball, and I used to just always play with it in the kitchen, in the living room, outside, in the garden. And my dad always tells me stories of how he used to come home stiff from training and stiff from a game, and I used to drag him outside. Come on, let's go outside. And it's a funny story, to be fair. I had my first game locally. And from that first game, a City scout was there, and my dad literally said to the City scout, he was like, no, he's not going to go and play now. He's here to enjoy himself. Let him enjoy himself first. And then I come home to my mum and she's like, no, get back there. You're killing his dreams. So I ended up playing at City going to United as well at the same time. And that was just my life. You know, football was my life. It was my joy. I loved it. And that was just what I'd love to do every single day of my life. So I was fortunate from doing it from 6 years old, and I'm still playing right now.
It seems that if a lot of people had a pro dad, they'd feel a lot of pressure, but it seems that he just instilled the importance of enjoying yourself whilst playing.
Yeah, it's so interesting you're saying that. Like, I've had so many conversations with players how their dad put so much pressure on them that they wanted it more than them. You know, and in my case, like, my dad didn't even want me to be a footballer in the first place, to be honest. He knew everything that comes with it, and was like, oh my days, like, I don't really want him to go down this route, but you know, it's up to him. He can be and do whatever he wants to be. And yeah, he never really put that pressure on me, and never made me feel less than, or made me feel like I had to go down this route. It was my decision, and I ended up making that decision for myself. And now looking at my career and how it's planned out, like, me making that decision for myself was vital. Me making the decision of me wanting to be a footballer, I can't blame anybody else. I cannot blame my dad. I cannot blame my coaches, because I made the decision, you know. And there's a lot of players out there that they didn't make the decision. You know, their dad made the decision, or their coach made the decision, you know. So they always got that resentment to the coach, their first coach, you know. So that always comes back to where they're at now. And the work that I do right now is all about clearing that and clearing them beliefs, and really going after what you desire right now.
Yeah, I think that's such a good way of parenting. And I listened to your podcast with your dad, and he actually spoke about a conversation he had with you when you were a young kid. He sat you down and said, right, Kenji, do you want to be a professional footballer? And you said, yeah, Dad, I do. And he said, right, well, from this moment forward, I'm going to treat you like a professional footballer. But what I really liked about that parenting was the fact that he gave you the choice to be a professional footballer or not. He wasn't going to force you into it, and he was going to be proud and happy of you no matter what choice you made. But also what I find quite interesting is, I think quite a lot of athletes who have professional sports people as parents, such as yourself and such as Devante Cole, who you recorded a podcast with as well, whose dad is Andy Cole. I think quite a lot of people like that are going to have more pressure to perform in their own careers. So did you find that you were under more pressure because you had that name tag as Dean Gorré's son?
So honestly, because he wasn't like such a big name in England, like, not a lot of people knew of him. So it wasn't that pressure. The pressure came more when I went to Holland. When I went to Holland, and it is the name that he has there, it was like, oh my days, like, I'm getting called Dean Gorré's son when actually I'm Kenji. You know, like, how are you greeting me as his son? You know, like, it's like, I'm coming into the club. I went to Ado Den Haag. I remember the first day I went there. Like, everyone was calling me Dean's son, rather than, like, I was like, yo, I'm Kenji, man. But only now I'm realizing that, like, even back then, I thought it was normal. You know, I just thought, yeah, Dean's son. Like, I was proud. I'm proud to be Dean's son. So it wasn't like a thing. But like, looking back, like, it never really put any pressure on me, because I was always proud. You know, I was always like, nah, it's sick, man. I think it's sick. Like, what he's achieved, like, I want to achieve that. So it's just amazing that he got to achieve it, and to have somebody right there that's experienced it, that I can ask questions to, that I can be alongside in my journey, that's already experienced it, is just a benefit to me. And I'm just so grateful that God's blessed me with the life that I actually live, to be honest.
I'm sure he was well known in Holland. Like, I saw on the other day, you put up that goal he scored for Ajax. That was unreal.
Yeah, man, in the Champions League, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was sick. So then if we go to your time at United, obviously, what age did you go there?
So I signed I was actually at United from 6 years old, and I had to sign, I think at 8 under 9s, you have to sign your contract. So that's when you like have to put pen to paper, and you can't go and play anywhere else and stuff like that. So it was yeah. So I was there then for 10 years, and it was, bro, some amazing experiences there, man. Some amazing experiences.
I was going to say, what was it like being a part of what is probably one of the best football academies in the world? You must have been seeing so many amazing players on a daily basis. It must have been pretty inspiring.
yeah, like looking back at that time, it was like, it was a real movie, man. Like to put it to you like that, like it was a movie, like it was normal though. So like me putting myself back into that Kenji, like it was normal. I was like going in, I was like, yes, morning gaffer, morning sir, you know, it was Sir Alex Ferguson, but it's like morning gaffer, or like anybody walking past, like it was like, you're right, Ryan, Giggs, you know, Scholes, like it was like normal. Like I'm training with Paul Pogba most days, like Jesse Lingard, like it was like normal. And like now looking back, it's like, wow, what an experience that actually was. But like when you're in that moment, you take it for granted. You take the experience for granted. Like even when I then moved on to Swansea, you know, making my Premier League debut, like I took that for granted because I wasn't living in the moment. And now what I tell everybody, what I try and install in everybody's life is to not take where you are for granted, whatever level you're playing at, because you're going to look back at that time and be like, wow, what a time, you know, what a time. And there's no better time than living in the moment.
I saw you talk about that as well on the podcast with John Bostock as well, because he was saying that he had all this success at 15. He had like a Nike deal. He's obviously debuting so early on, and to him that just all seemed completely normal because he'd never seen anything other than that.
And that's what it is as a footballer. Like it really is like that. It's just normal. It's like going to school, you know, you're there every day and it's normal, and that becomes your normal, you know. So it's a difficult one to kind of explain. It's like going to work for you guys, you know, like or going doing a podcast. Like it's just normal. You know, so it is a bit like, to people it might seem so strange, but it does become your normal.
It must also be quite difficult to stay grounded as well, because you were in the Manchester United academy. You had spent some time at Manchester City. I think you had interest from Arsenal and Chelsea as well. To have all of that at a young age, like how do you stay grounded and not think that you're like God's gift?
That's a real interesting question. I think that came from my parents, you know, how they sort of handled certain situations, because it's not the things that they said that kind of makes the impact on you. It's what they do. You know, it's like how are they handling certain situations? What are they doing, and how are they treating people? And I always, like, United was a massive schooling in the person I am today. You know, like even down to like cleaning the boots, getting the balls in after training, like just these sort of fundamentals, that they shape you as a person, because you don't just bring it into the football, you bring it into your life, you know? So it's like, it's them certain things that you like implement the foundations of who you are. So that's what I'm truly grateful for, to be honest.
Yeah, I think United must be one of the best footballing educations you can get. And I was actually listening to a podcast the other day with Rio Ferdinand, and he was talking about the winning culture at United and how players just wouldn't accept poor standards at training whatsoever. Could you give us an insight into the culture at United, and who was it who actually set the tone and the culture?
So I'll tell you guys a little story, actually. So there was a time when Paul Scholes actually retired. And when he retired, like, he came to train with us every day. And that's when I saw, like, wow, like this guy doesn't mess around. Even in the boxes, like, you know, like you have your like 6v2, you know, like little squares and stuff. And he would take that serious. Like, it wasn't a joke. Like, it wasn't like laughing. Like, you would have a little smile, but it would be serious. Like, you'd be slide tackling in there, and he would set the tone. But he wouldn't set the tone with talking. He would set the tone by taking the action and doing it. You know, and that's what I really learned there. I really learned that there's less talking and more doing. It's less talking and showing people how to do it and what to do. And it actually got to a point where United was short on numbers, and he was back in the first team, and he actually came back to play, you know? So like, that's what one of my biggest learning was from there. Like, just seeing them just working hard every single day, that their circumstance and what they went through, if they played or didn't play, wouldn't change how much effort they put in. And now you see it a lot. Like, you see it a lot in players. Like, if you don't play, for example, like, you wouldn't give your all. Like, there was a lot of times in my career, if I saw that I wasn't playing on the weekend, I would say, yeah, today, not really gonna give my all, you know, like even like if you don't get the love or support from the coach, like you're like, oh, I'm not gonna give my all now. And what I saw from Scholes, you know, like so Scholes and other people, like it didn't matter what circumstance was going on. They were putting their heart on the line regardless. Like they were putting everything into everything. So that's what separates, you know. One
that Cam and I want to ask you about is Ravel Morrison and just how much of a talent he was at that age.
Yeah, Ravel Morrison was the best I've ever played with, best I've ever trained with. I think a lot of people would say that, you know, I heard Rio Ferdinand speak about it as well. And I just feel like with Ravel, like he's got talent that is unexplainable. You know, you can't actually explain it because it's like, yeah, but how good is he then? How can he be that good? And it's just like his instinct is just out of this world. Like he can do things with the ball. He'll dribble with his left, with his right, and it's the exact same. What people might not see, you know, but it's just, he just knows exactly where to put the ball, when to put the ball there. Like he's got talent that you can't describe.
And I think some people might say that he hasn't actually lived up to that hype. And there seems to be maybe a slight issue with players like Ravel Morrison who get hyped up at such a young age, not actually fulfilling their potential. Do you think maybe the media and fans and managers who outline players who they think are going to become the next big thing, do you reckon that puts too much pressure on players sometimes?
I think there's so much, a lot of things that can put pressure on players. You know, it's not just the fans and the media that has an effect, but I do feel like players handle it in different ways. You know, talent is only ever fulfilled when it's working. You know, if it's not working, then it's not going to be fulfilled. And that is what you see with a lot of talent. You know, there's so much talent out there, but it will only ever be talent if it's actually working. You know, it can't be talent if it's not actually doing it on the pitch or getting an opportunity to do so. So I do believe, like with the media side of things, like, of course, like media can make a massive impact, but it's just how you deal with that. You know, what do you make that mean? You know, for example, like if a player was to be branded the next big thing, you know, if you make that mean that you are going to be the best and you don't have to put the work and you don't put the work in, then you're not going to get to the talent that you've been blessed with. But if the same person, for example, right, that has less talent, puts more work in, will get higher than that. Like even Jesse Lingard, massive example. Like he was never the most gifted. There was always people that were like, oh, he's a lot better, or he's a lot better. Like he was in the same age group as Pogba and Rav and stuff like that. Like he was never the guy that they spoke about. But look at where he is, you know, he's playing at the highest level, you know, and it's just like, it's these little details that can make a big difference.
I think what's so interesting is the idea of unlocking talent is so unique to the individual, and maybe some academies have their set ways of doing it. And then there's obviously people like Ravel Morrison who it probably doesn't work for them. And as time goes on, even with stuff like you doing on the ball and unlocking more of a psychological side to it, I think we'll find more ways to unlock talent individually.
Yeah, everybody works different. You know, everybody has their own internal thing going on in their system. You know, it's like, where do you get your motivation from? You know, there was times in my life where I got my motivation from if I was playing. If I got my motivation from when things were going well. You know, when the coach was saying, well done, Kenji, that's when I was feeling lit. I was going to the gym. I was doing extras. I was doing shooting after training. But when I'm not playing, I was thinking, yo, where's my motivation? I'm not feeling motivated. Why am I not feeling motivated? And these are the things that you have to ask yourself. You know, as a player, you know, are you being motivated by external circumstances, or are you being motivated for yourself? Like, you've got to get that motivation from within yourself. Like, why are you actually doing what you're doing? You know, these are the questions that you have to ask yourself as a footballer. You know, a lot of people will say, will say, yeah, I'm doing it for my family. All right, if you're doing it for your family, think about your son when you trying to find motivation. You know, think about your son, and if he was looking at you, and how will you train if he was watching you? You know, these are little things that can make such a big impact in your training, in how you show up, and in hindsight, how your career will go.
I think it's so interesting you say that. And we actually spoke to an England Sevens rugby player who talked about forming a why and finding motivation for moving forward in his career. And yeah, it's so interesting hearing you talk about motivation as well. But was there ever a point in your career, because you started at such a young age, you were in academies from about 6 or 7 years old, you had a dad who's a professional footballer. Was there ever a point where you actually had a bit of mental fatigue with football, or you felt a bit of a burnout and lost a bit of love for the game? Did that point ever come?
Yes, definitely. You know, there's so many times when I've just felt, you know, this is just way too much for me. I can remember like being on loan at ADO Den Haag, and I would go in, and even in the session, I would just cry. I'd be pressing and I'd be crying because I wanted it so much, but the coach just wasn't giving me the opportunity. I would just cry. You know, players would laugh at me and stuff, but I just wanted it so much. And it got to a point in my career where I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to feel the pressure of this anymore. I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling. And I want to know why I'm feeling this way. So that's when I started to really invest in myself. I started to really ask myself these questions, and everything that I learned, I wanted to give back to players. And that is why On the Ball started, you know, because it got to a point where I was like, I have something that people might need, you know, and if I've got something that people need, I've got to provide a platform for them to actually be able to get that, what I've got. So that's where that came from, you know.
That conversation that you had with Sir Alex to end your time at United, has that made you have more respect for him now? Because although it was an incredibly gutting decision at the time, it was one that was ultimately made for you to get the most out of your career.
Oh, I respect it like more than you'd even think about, because like in the football world, you get told a lot of things, you know. You get told by the coaches, oh, we want you, we need you, you're going to be this, you're going to do this for us, you're going to be the main guy. And then you come to the club and it's just right, you said that I was going to be starting, like, what? I'm on the bench. You know, it's these things. And he was just so honest with me. And that's all we ask for, honesty. You know, we just want coaches and even like people in our life in general, we just want honesty. And that is what I respect so much, that honesty of him telling me exactly where I was, but not even putting me down with it, you know, kind of lifting me up while actually putting me down, really, you know, not giving me a deal, but lifting me up at the same time. And that is hard. That's hard to do. And I respect him a lot for doing that.
Yeah, we actually spoke to a footballer as well who was released by Spurs at a similarly young age, and his mindset was a positive one, because he said, right, although I've been released by Spurs, there are 91 other clubs in the Football League and one of them is going to be right for me. So did you have that positive mindset?
Yeah, for me, when I got told that, well, I'm not going to lie, like when I got told that, like as soon as I got in the car, I just let it all out. Like I just thought my life was over. I literally thought my life was over. I felt worthless. I felt like, who am I? I felt like, what am I going to tell my friends? What am I going to tell my family? Like my identity was so tied to Kenji, the footballer, the guy that plays for United. And now who am I? Like, it's like, I'm not that guy anymore. Like all my days, I've let everybody down. And I can remember getting in the car and driving home and just thinking, what am I even going to say to my fiance now, my girlfriend at the time? Like, what am I going to say to my brothers? What am I going to say to my dad, my mom? Like, how am I going to even act right now? And I can just remember knocking on the door and saying, you know, I've been released, and I just burst out crying, let everything out. And that's when my dad told me one of the best advices I've ever been told, really. He said, when one door closes, another one opens. When he said that to me, like a lot of like, it like let a lot out of me where I was like, I could breathe. And then he said to me, he said, all right, just now go and find out where you want to go. So what I did was I went on Google. I went on every single club in the Prem, every single club in the Championship, and was like, where do I want to go? And I looked at every opportunity, how many wingers were there, how many wingers were at that club. And I said to myself, all right, I want to go here, 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 here. And Swansea was one of the clubs, and I ended up signing for Swansea. So anybody that is going through something like this, you know, if somebody is listening to this and is going through being released from a big club or even being released in general, you know, just know that stop looking back. You know, like don't look back, look forward. You know, if you're in a car right now, you're not going to look back in the wing mirror. It's so small. Like these things can hold us back, but the front mirror is so big. Like look at all the opportunities that are in your life right now. Like you've got so much, and just go out there and ask yourself, what is it that you want? What club do you want to go to? And go make the action steps to get yourself there.
It's often with athletes that we speak to, that initial setback, it seems so gutting at the time, but in the long-term journey, it's so important. And I've heard you speak about your time at Swansea and you've said that it's when you ultimately went from being a boy to a man, really. So how important were those years at Swansea and where you are now?
Yeah, the Swansea was literally a time in my life where it kind of molded me and shaped me. And all the experiences there has led me to who I am today, really. Like I've literally experienced every emotion when I was there. Like you said, like from turning from boy into man, like I've got my own responsibilities now. I've got my own, how do you call it, bills to pay. I've got my own responsibilities, you know, and I never really understood them things, you know. You kind of take your mum for granted when it comes to them side of things, the cooking side especially, you know. And it's like these things shape you. These things make you understand that nobody is gonna start to give you any handouts. Like you've got to go and work for what you want to go and achieve in this world. And it was hard, you know. It put extra pressure on you. Like it puts pressure on you where it's like, I have to do this to put food on my table. You know, this isn't a joke. This isn't fun and games anymore. Like this is my life, you know. And I went on a couple of loans where them experiences there were just mind blowing, really. Like I can remember going to Northampton, and I was just like thinking to myself, like, wow, like this is a whole different ball game. You know, like I was so used to playing football with the ball and now I'm playing football and the balls, I'm looking up to the sky, you know. And it was just like these sort of things. And it was always nice, you know. Football was nice, like 1-2s and things like that. Like now people are fighting for their bread and butter. People are fighting for their family. And I just saw the different passion. I saw a different side of it where they were like, I'm fighting right now for bread on the table. Like it made me realize like that this side of life, when actually I was so used to being at Swansea and being at United, I was privileged. You know, I was really privileged to be there. And that's what really humbled me and made me realize that, you know, that this is also football. This is also how football can be. And yeah, just to fast forward my time on at Swansea, I'd experienced so much. Like I ended up making my debut, making my Premier League debut. That was just such a, like, at the time it was like a relief. It was like a relief. It was like, thank God, man, finally. You know, it was like all this hard work for this moment. Like, thank God it's finally come. And I didn't really, like looking back, like I didn't really embrace the moment for what it was, you know, like I took that for granted. Like it was so many times. And I got to a point in my life where I made the decision of, I'm going to live my life in the moment rather than looking at the past, rather than looking at what if. Like I'm living in right now. And that is where, like, you know, leading on for 3 years later, you know, I'm out here in Madeira, like living my life on a day-to-day basis. Like I just never imagined my life to be like this, to be honest.
And I think that is important, living your life in the moment, because an athlete's career is short, isn't it? It's 10 to 15 years. And one day it's going to be over. So you need to actually enjoy those moments when you step out onto the Premier League pitch for the first time. That's an amazing moment. You've got to relish it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, even looking back, like, my best friend was on the bench. He was watching me, and it's a crazy experience. My mum in the stands, my girlfriend having a panic attack, and it's just like, it's just mad. Like, these experiences you look back on and think, whoa, like, we can be so overwhelmed with not playing or being on the bench and things like that, but we forget these blessings that we actually have in this moment.
And I assume you've seen The Last Dance as well, and it's obviously something that Cam and I thought was so sick. And they said that apart from all the physical things with Michael Jordan, his main attribute that he had was being able to live in the moment. So it must be so important for sports people to be able to do that. Wow,
yeah, man, it's vital. It's vital. Like, I even spoke to one player that I had a phone call the other day, and he was speaking about, like, I'm really worried about my future because in 6 months I don't have a contract. I was like, in 6 months you could be playing in the first team. In 6 months you could be signing a new 3-year deal. Like, what do you mean you couldn't have a contract? There's also another side to it. We're so easy to focus on the negative side of it and what ifs and what buts, but you're forgetting to live right now and the opportunities that you have right now. And the next day you train with the first team, So it was just like that little bit of a change in perspective can make such a big difference in how you show up in your life.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Jaden Merritt said when he spoke to us last week. It was about reframing situations. So, for example, he had a situation where he was thrown into the deep end on his debut, and some players would see that negatively and be like, oh, no, I'm not ready. But he saw it as, no, this is an opportunity for me to prove myself and get a professional contract. And so, yeah, it's really interesting that you're echoing what he's saying and saying you've got to just reframe those moments and look at them positively.
Yeah. Wow, reframing is powerful.
100%. And you've also been quite vocal and quite open about sort of the mental space that you found yourself in towards the end of Swansea. And obviously you've just talked about that now, saying that you felt you weren't able to live in the present. What kind of mind space were you in, and why do you think you weren't actually able to live in the present at that point?
I think it's because I focused so much on the identity of a footballer. I was so focused on being a footballer, and that's all I was. And if I was on the bench, like, I didn't know who I was. Like, I would come home and be angry with my fiance now, and I would be angry with everybody around me. Like, it would be like I would take it out on the people closest to me. Like, it was like I didn't know who I was. I really didn't know who I was without football. And it is literally as simple as that. It consumed my life. And how I used to handle that pressure and everything with that, like, I used to go gamble. I used to go and gamble, and it used to be not just once or twice a week. I used to go every day. It got to a point where I literally went every day. And even to go back into that time, like, it was normal. Like, it wasn't even a bad thing. I was still like, people there, like, wouldn't even see that there was a problem. Because I was still hyped, and I was a lively guy and happy and joyful. But deep down, I was a mess. Deep down, I was like going there. And even these sort of things that people might be going through these things right now. And it's just like, in your life, you go through things and it makes you and shapes you into who you are. Like, I had to go through them experiences to do what I'm doing right now, to even be able to talk about the experiences that I actually went through. Like, when you do go gambling every day, like, it's like, oh, I'm not even losing that much money. Like, it's not even that. Like, I'm winning, I'm up. And I used to, oh, it's not even that bad. I've not lost that much, or, oh, it's all right. I didn't go yesterday, so I'll go today. It's like, it was so like, it was just crazy where my mind was, that I thought it was okay to do that, and it was only since I can reflect back now how bad and deep it actually was. But at the time, it wasn't that deep. And I know so many players that are going through this right now that don't even think it's a thing. They don't even think it's a situation, because it's like our normal. You know, it's like going to training. It's like normal thing to go and do. And that's why, like, I would encourage everybody to, like, if they are going through that, you know, ask yourself why you're doing it. Why are you actually going there? Because it's actually stopping you from living out your true purpose to your life. You know, and that's when I realized the identity of being a footballer, it wasn't all of me. You know, I'm way more than a footballer. You know, I'm also a son. I'm also a brother. You know, I'm also a fiance. I mean, I've also got a fiance. You know, it's just like, you're so much more than just a footballer. And I started to realize that. And that's when I started to put my energy elsewhere. I started to say to myself, I don't just want to be the best footballer. I also want to be the best partner. I also want to be the best in my finances. I also want to be the best in my spirituality. I want to be the best in every single area of my life, not just a football.
Yeah, I think that's something that's definitely emerging recently. Like, even with your Conversations podcast, and even if you take something like Hector Bellerin's More Than a Footballer podcast, like, people are now definitely showing themselves to be more than a footballer. And I think that's helping footballers sort of take a step back and actually find their identity a bit more.
Yeah, it's so true. Because if you put yourself in a footballer's identity and that's all you are, one day it's going to be taken away from you.
100%.
It's going to be taken away from you. And then who are you? So it's better figuring out who you are right now rather than in 10 years' time. Because if you look at the divorce rates after your career, if you look at the depression rates, if you look at the rates of bankruptcy, like, all these things are there. You know, we've got to work on ourselves right now to prepare ourselves for life after football, because it's not forever. This life isn't forever.
And you finding that identity, was your religion a big part of that? Because it's almost like you're on a bigger journey than just your football career itself. Do you know what I mean? You're part of something bigger. So did that help you take a step back and find your identity ultimately? Yeah,
definitely. I started to really ask myself, like, who am I? You know, where do I come from? Like, why am I getting triggered? You know, it's really getting myself to that core. And, you know, I believe in Jesus. I believe in Christ. I'm a Christian. And once I really gave my life to Christ, like, I started to realize that my life is way bigger than just Kenji the footballer. And I realized that everything that I have inside of me, I can help others with, you know. And I really felt like, how can I really use who I am to inspire and help others, you know, by sharing my story. Okay, then I started to share my story, just started to speak about the things that I was feeling. And that led on to making my business On the Ball. And On the Ball is basically mindset and personal development for professional footballers. And we've got several services and products that we provide, but that all came from the reason of my connection with God. The inspiration came from God. It didn't come from me, because in hindsight, I just wanted to be a footballer. You know, I just want to be a footballer. And I realized that God has placed something in my heart to go and do that I have to go and fulfill. And that's kind of what's led me to what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, and it sounds amazing what you're doing right now. Could you tell us a little bit more about your work with On the Ball and how you help footballers?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of services and products that we provide, but we've got the Mindset Planner, which is basically a journal where you can write down your goals. It has your daily prompts. It has your Wheel of Life, where you can evaluate every area of your life, see where you're at, and also know where you want to go. You know, like, if you don't know where you're going, like, you're just waking up and living by accident, you know? So I wanted to create something where everything that I've learned and everything that the things that I do, I wanted to create. I've worked through all the best books and things in the journals. So I just thought I'd get them all together and put it into one. And yeah, so I've got that. I also run a community. I run a free community for footballers to come into, where we speak about the challenges, what we go through. And we also speak about our successes, because it's a lonely world. It's a lonely world out there, you know. It's somewhere where sometimes our family members don't understand the things that we go through. Sometimes our coaches don't understand, people around us don't understand it. So it's a place where we can really come together and speak about these things. So the way that works is we get on 2 calls a month where we get guest experts to come on and deliver a training for us to really work on our mindset and work on every area of our life for us to become the best versions of ourselves. And the second call is with a ex-professional footballer, where he comes on and shares his story, and we can learn and ask questions and really just becoming the best versions of ourselves, like becoming the best footballers, but also becoming the best people that we can be. So that's kind of what I've been. I also have a podcast, like you shared, and where we interview players about their ups and downs in their careers and the mindset side of things, and really get to know the real footballer behind the real person behind the footballer.
I think it's such a good way to do it because, you know, the prospect of going, I don't know, one-on-one and going and seeing a sports psychologist or trying to get help with the mental side of sport can seem so daunting. But by having these group calls or, you know, just listening to a podcast or something, I think it's such a better way of doing it.
I think it also starts with realizing that you don't always have all the answers. You know, like I really used to think that I knew it all. Like I can remember myself like, who are you to tell me that? Like I know that already. Like and it all starts with realizing that there's always room to grow. There's always somewhere where you can get inspiration from, knowledge from, but do it for you. Don't do it for anybody else. Like go and figure out the things, because life will make you work on yourself if you don't. You know, it gets to a point where if you do not look after your body, you will become fat. If you do not work on your mind, you will get to a point in your life where life will make you. You know, that's what I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, and I think obviously we're passionate as well about having more positive discussions about the mental side of sport. But I think quite often athletes are reluctant to be open to that side of sport. And it is actually really incredible that you've managed to have so many athletes on your podcast talking about the mental side, like Nathan Dyer and Marvin Sadell talked about their mental health and the impact of football on their mental health. Have you met any reluctance with the people you've approached about talking about the mental side of football? And do footballers in general, do you think, are they reserved about talking about that area of football?
You can kind of see with the people that don't really want to talk about the things that they're going through. But the things that I do right now and the work that I do, like you can open people up, but it all comes if they desire to be opened up. Like you don't want to help someone that doesn't want to be helped. Like it has to come from them. Like they need to want to get help, you know, and it comes back to not realizing that you don't have all the answers. You know, why are you feeling this pressure? Like you've not even asked yourself why you're feeling the pressure. So ask yourself, you know, but it will get to a point where they will, you know, and that's what I've really realized, that it maybe in their career, they don't ask themselves the question, but after their career, they will. It will get to a point in their life where they will answer the questions. And that's why I really realized that there wasn't a place for players to come together. So I decided to create one.
Having been in football for 17, 18 years, have you seen it come on, like the willingness to be a bit more open about the mental side of sport?
Yeah, I really did see a massive change, especially like people. I think it comes from, you know, people speaking out, people speaking about the experiences that they've had, where it's like, oh my days, yeah, I felt like that. Oh, I felt like that. And then it's like, all right, I'm going to go and speak about that as well. And once more people start to speak about it, it starts to become normal. It starts to become normal, because like, why are we hiding the fact of what we feel just because of the image that we have? And that's what we kind of like, because we've created a certain image of ourselves. Like, it's like, no, it's dog eat dog. Like that is just how we're programmed to live. And it's difficult. You know, the football world is not easy. It's not easy to speak about these things, especially when, you know, if you speak about these things, the coach might not play you because he thinks that you're not in the right headspace, or he thinks about this. Like it's a lot that comes with it. You know, it's not just as simple as, you know, sharing what you're going through and hoping that like things go smooth on the outside, but it's just realizing that, you know, that your feelings do matter. You know, how you feel matters, and you matter, you know, but sometimes you think that you don't matter, especially when you don't play. Like, you feel like you don't matter by your coach. You don't feel like you don't matter by your family. And there's so much pressure there, because if you don't make the money, like, who is? And it's just all these things can build up inside of you where you take on the responsibility for others.
Yeah, and I think podcasts are actually a really good way of encouraging those positive discussions. And we found that by interviewing people, suddenly they're just opening up about loads of parts of their life, even though we've never met them before. And it's the same with you. You've got footballers onto your podcast, and they're suddenly opening up about quite serious parts of their life. But it's a good way of encouraging people who are listening to then go and share their own issues. And it's just a really positive way of looking at things.
Appreciate that, man. I appreciate it.
Also, from speaking to all the footballers you've spoken to, what sort of values and mental qualities have you found that they all share? Because I think to be a footballer, you've got to have a lot of motivation, a lot of passion, drive. You've got to be resilient because there's a lot of setbacks. What would you say are the qualities that they all share to reach the top level?
Well, it all starts with obviously having talent. You know, they've all got a talent. And what I've realized, what they all have in common is that they all love it. Deep down, they all love it, you know, and that is where like speaking to players and speaking to people that have on the podcast and everything like that, and just speaking to players in general, like a lot of players like fall out of love with football because of a situation, because of a circumstance. But it always comes back to why you love it in the first place, and that's when you will start to shine again. You know, it's like getting that kid back inside of you. I saw a video from Henry where he spoke about never lose that kid inside of you, because he's got you to where you are today. And he's shared about how he lost that child inside of him because of football, you know, because of everything around him. And that is his encouragement to us, that we should never lose that child inside of us that just loves football. Because there's so much politics now involved, because there's so much more to football, you know, it's not just as simple as just playing. It's like, it's not always easy. You know, it's not always easy to show up and be your best and give your all in every session. But what I saw in common is that they all love it. Deep down, they all love it.
And that's such a good mantra to live by. And I think it goes back as well to obviously what your dad said. Your dad said at a young age, look, I know what it takes to be a professional footballer, and you've just got to absolutely love it. And you're now 18 years later, it's still exactly the same. All the players you've played with, they just love it.
Yeah, that's it. You just got to love it, man.
And I think you do have to love it, because there are so many pressures that you're going to experience being a professional footballer. One of them at the moment is social media is obviously a massive pressure. If you have a bad game, you've got fans tweeting you or Instagramming you, sending you abuse. Do you take much notice of social media, and would you advise the players that you chat to look at social media, or do you think actually it's better to avoid it?
It's hard, you know. It is hard when you're getting abuse and stuff. Like, I'm not going to sit back and say it's easy. It's hard. Like, it's hard, man. When you're getting abuse like that, like, you're thinking, yo, am I that bad? You know, am I that bad? But it starts, that is why you can never, like, rely on other people or for your own joy and your own happiness. You know, you can't rely on that, because man can make you feel a certain type of way that you don't want to feel, you know? And it's just about really understanding that, asking yourself, like, what is the truth in this? Like, I actually ask myself that about everything. Like, what is the truth in this? So that could be if I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm not playing on the weekend. Well, what's the truth in that? You know, like, little things in that. Like, if I was to get a message of like, oh, Kenji, you're shit, for example. Like, what's the truth in that? Well, obviously I'm not. You know, so it's like, I might have had a bad game. Okay, I've had a bad game. But if you're making that mean you're bad and now you're going to show up bad, then you're going to play into what he said about you. And you're now going to show up in your training session bad. You know, so if you're relying on comments from others or relying on outside circumstances and relying on outsiders' perspective to get your joy from, like, you're going to lose. It's going to be inconsistent because one day you're the king, one day you're nothing. That's just the reality of a footballer that you live. So it's just about managing them and really understanding that you're way more than a footballer. You're way more than that. And your value doesn't come from being a footballer or playing, because a value as a man is you're a man first and a footballer second. Like, you're not just like, you're not less of a man if you don't play on the weekend. You're not less of a man if you don't score the winning goal. But we can make to feel like that. You know, so it's not always easy.
And you say about that journey you've gone on and how much you've developed. Would old Kenji, for example, have looked at tweets and looked at Instagram and worried about it?
Oh man, they would have touched me differently. And that's not to say that they don't touch me now, right? They still trigger me sometimes, but it's just the way it triggers me. You know, it's just the way and what I make it mean and stuff like that. Like, you cannot. Yeah, like, wow, I used to make me laugh, to be fair. I used to laugh at them and actually, like, go into them and start making me think, like, am I rich? Wait, huh? Whoa, that deep? Is it that? And I used to ask my missus, is it that true? Like, is it really like that? And I used to ask other people's opinions and stuff. Like, I used to drive myself crazy with that side of things, man. I should drive myself crazy.
And we've spoken for the last hour or so about how important it is to live in the present. But one thing you've said is having that inner child in you and sort of playing like a kid and having desire for it. So that child in you, what would you want to go on to do in the next 5 years? Because you're obviously still very young. You're in a great spot. You've developed mentally. What do you think you could do the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, like, honestly, like, I just want to be the best footballer that I can be. You know, like, whatever level or whatever. Like, obviously right now, like, I know that I've got my love for football has found my purpose in life. So my purpose is now bigger than football, which I know that God is going to place me wherever I'm supposed to go. So if that is anywhere in the world, like, God will place me there if I'm supposed to be there. So I'm really open to that. But the thing is, I do also want to, and that doesn't mean that I don't want to get the best out of my career. You know, I want to be the best footballer that I can be, and that's playing at the highest level. That is performing on the biggest stages, and that's the journey that I'm on. So I'm just hoping for the opportunity that I can just showcase my talent, to be honest.
And I think you're doing it the right way, because if you're enjoying it, then you're more likely to play well. And it seems like you're enjoying yourself at National now more than you probably ever have done. And also, you're now playing for your national team as well. That must be quite a nice feeling to play for them.
Yeah, definitely. Like, national team, like, playing for Curaçao has been unbelievable. Like, I never really understood how big it was until I wore the shirt and national anthem comes on, and you realize that you're not just playing for yourself, you're not just playing for the team, but you're playing for a country. Like, it's so big. Like, when you realize that, like, I'm realizing, like, whoa, like, I'm playing for a country here. Like, we've just put them on the map, sort of thing. Like, people didn't know who Curaçao were until we played against the US and we had such a good display and we got to the quarterfinal of the Gold Cup. Like, it was just so amazing. Like, that feeling there is indescribable. The amount of joy that my grandma had, the amount of joy that my mum had from that, it's just amazing to be able to live that out.
Literally, the last hour has been so sick, mate. So thanks so much for chatting to us. And I think the people listening to that have learned so much. Obviously, they can listen to more on your conversations with Kenji Pod.
Definitely, man. Guys, thank you so much for having me on. You know, you guys are a breath of fresh air. Continue to do what you're doing, because it's inspiring so many. You know, you don't even realize the amount of people that you're actually touching. And even the people around you, you know, you're touching them with the actions that you actually do. And, you know, actions speak louder than words, man. So continue to do what you're doing. You're a light. You guys are a light in the world. So please continue to do what you're doing, man.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate that, Kenji. Enjoyed that. Really enjoyed it.
I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
We might need your help with editing. You're probably better.
Oh, don't even ask me to do that. I don't do any of that, man. That goes back to the team, man.
I wish we had a team behind us.
Yeah, we got a good team behind us, man.
Editing's the worst bit, so you're lucky enough to do that.
So that is not my expertise, man. That's not my expertise.
The team is just my sister, and I get her to do it reluctantly. That's pretty much it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Use the people in-house, man.
You're right.
Definitely. Oh, I love it, man. Bro, literally, guys, like, continue to do what you're doing, you know, like, people are definitely watching, people are listening. Like, you know what I've realized also, like, you might not even receive the messages right there and then, but in a couple months' time or in 6 months' time, and you get a message, you're like, wow, I didn't even know that I touched him like that. Or I didn't even know that it meant so much to him like that. Like, I got a call the other day and he was just like, your videos have helped me so much. And I'm just like, wow, like, it gave me more power to continue to do the videos, you know? So guys, you never know who you guys are inspiring and helping, man. And you'll see that as well. I'm sure you get a lot of feedback as well on that. So
well, that's how we found you ultimately, is I saw your Instagram and then listened to your pods, and it just made us want to reach out to you a lot, because they are sick. Just hearing people that you'd only see on TV, just hear them open up and like have normal human conversations is just quite sick. So
no, that's amazing, man. That's so good to hear, because you don't realize that when you're doing it. You know, you don't realize that when you're actually just having a conversation with somebody or speaking about these things, because like, you know, like even having conversations with fans and stuff, like they think that we're so different, you know, and it's just like, yo, we're just human, man. Like we're just like you know, like we also have feelings. We also go through stress. We also go through things in life, you know?
That's also what I find weird is when we record these, I actually forget that someone's going to end up listening to these. Like, I'm sort of just having a conversation with someone.
That is true. It's true. I always think that as well. I always think, oh my days, something weird. I say something mad. I say that as well.
Then you get a message from someone after you've released it, and they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you said that." And I was like, "Oh, like someone's actually."
No, I love that though. Oh, the amount of messages, man. The amount of messages that I received, like, why did you speak about that, or why did you say that, or like, even down to like my own mum. Like, it was like, for her to listen to the things that I had to say, like she was like, "Oh, did you go through that? Or did you say that? Wow, what do you mean? Like, you need to let me know if you're going to speak about these things." And it's just like, oh my God. Like, I didn't even realize these things until after, you know? Because when you're having a conversation, it's just a normal convo.
And it's something about doing a podcast, like it really does disarm you. Like, you do just open up way more than you would like in person, just like having a pint with someone. It's really weird.
You do it. No, you really do. You really do. It's because you also get asked questions, innit? You have to answer the question. You have to answer the question. It's like when the question gets asked, you're like, oh my days, where am I going to go here? But yeah, man, I enjoyed it, boys. I enjoyed it, man.
Really appreciate it. We'll let you get on with your evening. But yeah, thanks a lot for doing that and giving up your time.
Yeah, man. Much love, man. Let me know also when it will go out and stuff, and we'll definitely keep connected, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Kenji.
Thanks so much.
All right, man. Much love, man. See you later, boys.